Someone left a comment on this video about Job, and honestly, it stopped me cold. They said, God protected Job, but his kids were fair game. His first 7 children lost their lives. In modern language, they were just NPCs in Job's account. How do I know I'm not one of those nameless NPCs in someone else's story? I want you to sit with that for a second, because that is not a lazy question. That is one of the most honest questions you can ask about this book. And if you've ever felt like your life was just background noise in someone else's bigger story, if you've ever felt unseen, unprotected, or forgotten by God, this video is specifically for you. Because by the end of this, I'm going to show you something in the text of Job that most people completely miss. Something that flips this entire question on its head. Stay with me.
Let's go back to Job chapter 1. There's a man, blameless, upright, feared God, turned away from evil. The Bible literally calls him the greatest man in all the East. He has 10 children, 7 sons, 3 daughters, thousands of livestock, servants, status, a name. And his children were alive, feasting, together. A full house. And then, in one day, it all collapses. First messenger. Your oxen and donkeys were stolen. The servants, killed. Second messenger. Fire fell from the sky, burned up the sheep. Third messenger. Raiders took the camels, more servants dead. Fourth messenger. A great wind struck the house where your children were eating, and they are dead. 10 children, gone, slow, 1 day. Now here's what makes this deeply uncomfortable. God knew this was going to happen. God permitted it. And yet Job himself, the man at the center of the storm, was untouchable. Satan had to ask permission just to touch him. So the question is legitimate. Why were the children not protected the same way? Were they just collateral damage?
To understand this, you have to understand what was actually happening in the heavenly council scene, because most people read it too casually. Job 1:6, the sons of God present themselves before the Lord, and Satan comes with them. God says, "Have you considered my servant Job?" Stop there. God initiates this. God brings Job up. Satan's challenge is specific. Does Job fear God for nothing? You've put a hedge around him, around his household, around everything he has. Did you catch that? Satan acknowledged the hedge. He said, there is protection here. His argument was that the protection itself was the reason for Job's faith. Remove it, he said, and Job will curse you to your face. So the permission God grants is tied to one specific purpose: to prove that authentic faith exists. This is not God saying some lives matter less. This is a cosmic challenge being answered through one man's story. And here is the distinction that matters enormously. God permitted. Satan executed. Those are not the same thing.
Now here's the part I don't hear people talk about enough. The commenter called Job's children nameless NPCs. But are they actually nameless? Go back to Job 1:5. Job would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. Job was a priest for his children. He interceded for them regularly. He was deeply concerned about their souls. These were not background characters to Job or to God. And then go to Job 42, after the restoration. Verse 14 says the daughters are named: Jemimah, Keziah, Karen Happuch, described as the most beautiful women in the land. And Job gave them inheritance alongside their brothers, which was radically unusual for that culture. The original daughters? We don't have their names in the text. But does that mean God didn't know them? Here is the question you need to sit with. Is someone an NPC just because the narrative doesn't zoom in on them?
The commenter asked, how do I know I'm not just an NPC in someone else's account? I want to answer that directly. You're asking the wrong question. You're assuming there are multiple competing accounts. Job's story, your story, my story, and some people get to be the main character while others stay in the background. But that is not the biblical framework. There is only one story, God's story, and you are not an NPC in it. Listen to Psalm 139. You formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. Every single day, written, before you lived one of them. Matthew 10:29, Jesus says, not one sparrow falls to the ground apart from your Father. And then he says, you are worth more than many sparrows. Luke 15, the shepherd leaves 99 to find the one. The woman lights a lamp and sweeps the entire house for one coin. The father sees his son while he is still a long way off, and he runs. God is not a God who loses track of people. God is not running a simulation where some lives are filler content. You are not a background character to the one who wrote the script.
But I have to be honest with you about something uncomfortable. The book of Job doesn't fully explain why the children died, and that's intentional, because the book of Job is not primarily about Job's suffering. It's about the sufficiency of God when suffering has no explanation. At the end of the book, chapters 38 through 41, God doesn't answer Job's questions. He asks his own. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Have you entered the springs of the sea? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? God's answer to suffering is not an explanation. It's a revelation. A revelation that the God who runs the cosmos is the same God who knows your name, the same God who numbered Job's children, the same God who sees every sparrow fall. And Job's response, after all of that? I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. He didn't get his answers. He got God, and it was enough.
So let me bring this back to you. The real question isn't, am I important enough to be protected? Because Job's children weren't unimportant, and they still went through what they went through. Protection from suffering is not the measure of your value to God. The God who wrote Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, plans for a future and a hope. That God did not accidentally write you into the margins. You are not a nameless NPC. You are known. You are seen. You are written. The only question is, will you trust the pen in his hand?